All right, today I have 4 audience members with me today for my informative speech. "50 years ago, the United States landed a man on the moon. Or did they? I'm here to tell you that 50 years ago, in 1969, NASA launched the Apollo 11 mission, sending the Saturn V rocket to the moon, and landing, historically, Neil Armstrong on the surface. My research has been backed up by Amy Teedle, who is a spaceflight historian as well as author and content creator for her own YouTube channel, Vintage Space, as well as photographer Chris Woodford, who explains how cameras works on his site, explainthatstuff.com. The 3 points I'm going to be explaining today are how people think the moon landing was faked. The 3 conspiracy theories I'm going to be talking about are, the first one will be about people think that there should be stars in the pictures taken from the moon. The second one would be that people think that there's supposed to be a large crater underneath the lunar module on the moon. And the third is about how people think that the film was faked and set up in a TV studio. All right, the first misconception is about photos taken from the moon of the Earth. And you can see in my photo, this is one of the pictures that people think was faked, because they feel that on the moon, when you take a photo, because there's no atmosphere, they think that there should be more stars visible at a brighter visibility. And Woodford explains how that's not how cameras really work. Cameras work by opening up an aperture in the back of the camera, allowing light in, exposing the light to a film, and changing it, and then closing that aperture to create the photo. Now, when they took photos on the moon, shown by right here, everything was so bright because there's no atmosphere and there's so much light coming off of the sun. So what they had to do, they had to lower the amount of light that they let in to, as they would dim the picture to allow the beautiful pictures that they did take. That would hide the stars because it didn't allow enough time for the light from the stars to reach the film. Now I've explained how cameras work, and it shows how a little misconception about how simple things work can lead you to a very different answer. Now I want to explain to you how another one of the misconceptions, conspiracy theories, is that when the lunar module touched down on the moon, it should have left a large blast crater on the surface. Teedle explains in her videos that that's actually wrong, because there's reduced gravity on the moon. The force from the thruster was actually able to fan out over a wider span, not creating all that force in one spot. So as they descended, that force was spread out as well as reduced. Because they're descending, they needed to lower the amount of thrust that they're putting out of those engines. She explains that those thrusters are actually rated about 10,500 pounds of force, but the astronauts actually had throttled it down to 3,000 pounds, and then had even turned off the engines before touchdown for a smooth landing. And you can see a trend here, that another misconception about how basic physics work, basic mechanics work, can alter what you actually think might have happened and change what had actually occurred. And the third point I'll be explaining is the most popular conspiracy that I've heard about. And it regards that the photos were filmed on a TV studio rather than on the moon, because you can see that the hatch marks in some of the photos were actually behind the object rather than in front, as you can see on the right side. Now, this is explained simply by both Teedle and Woodford, that the hatch marks are actually etched onto glass and placed in front of a film inside of the camera. So what that would do is when the aperture opened up and let the light in, it would create a blank spot in the shape of a cross that would be used for distancing and general terms of how things were actually set apart from each other on the moon when you actually look back on these photos in the future. The light, because I've shown in the very first example, was so bright from the surface of the moon and the Earth that it bled almost like a marker on paper. So when it hit around the film on these parts, it was so bright that it bled under those etchings and actually colored the film anyway and changed it to make the picture and make it look fake. Now, I've explained 3 basic conspiracy theories about the moon and how it was faked. I've stated how the stars were actually there in the pictures rather than hidden or not there at all. And I've also explained how there's no crater underneath the lander because there just wasn't enough force to land to create a hole on the surface. And lastly, I've also explained how the pictures aren't faked because they were just generated on a very old camera and just couldn't really hold up to be consistent with the way they were supposed to be taking the photos. Many people even today, 50 years later, still believe that they're faked, even with this hard evidence. And I'd like to close by just saying that because I've taken this very small step into this research, you can obviously prove that mankind really did take that giant leap 50 years ago. Thank you.